Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming to this important and urgent press conference. My name is Nat Villasana. I use she, her, or they, them pronouns, and I will be co-facilitating the program today along with Laura Rivera. I'm an activist with the Party for Socialism and Liberation based in Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm an organizer for the campaign to shut down Folkston Ice Processing Center, aka FIPC. On Tuesday, April 19th, our campaign was alerted to an extremely urgent issue regarding the launch of a hunger strike by immigrants imprisoned at FIPC. Members of our campaign spoke with multiple people detained and confirmed that approximately 40 people are currently on hunger strike. This strike is carried out to protest abuse, human rights violations, excessive delays in legal proceedings, and retaliation that many are facing for speaking out about their conditions. The hunger strike comes after a rally that our campaign organized in front of FIPC. At the rally, incarcerated immigrants told their stories to protesters, including myself, through the fences in the yard. Some of those detained are reportedly being held in the hole or isolation in retaliation for their solidarity. We have been told that while in isolation, they are only served one meal a day, spoiled milk is the only thing provided for breakfast, and they are only let out once a day for time to shower. We demand that the voices of those incarcerated at FIPC be heard now, and we call on all people to join our campaign and fight for immigrant justice and fight to shut down FIPC. So I'll hand it over now to my co-facilitator, Laura.
Thank you, Nat. And I'm Laura Rivera. My pronouns are she, her, ella. And thank you everybody for making the effort to be here today. These retaliatory actions by the jailers come after the launch of this campaign and a really visceral connection that happened between activists outside the facility and people inside who were just across the street in a recreation yard and talking and engaging with each other. I'm going to go into a brief video clip of this amazing moment of solidarity, if you will just bear with me as I share the screen here. And if I could get a thumbs up if you're able to view it, thank you so much.
Oh, we're missing sound. Laura, I think we might have to reshare because the audio isn't playing.
Oh, I'm so sorry about that. I wasn't aware. Go ahead and drop into the chat the video itself, and I will stop share right now with apologies to everybody for the tech problem. Those were remarks by Leanne Sanchez, Executive Director of Community Estrella. And we will try one more time to play that video before we turn it over to our amazing panel of activist speakers. But let me just set up a few points for context here. This expansion happened, or the planned expansion has its seeds in some negotiations between Charlton County and the private prison corporation Geo Group dating to last year, when those two parties signed an agreement to expand into vacant spaces in part of this prison complex called D. Ray James facility. And if ICE takes the step of agreeing, signing on to this two-party agreement that already exists, then the capacity for Folkston will triple to make it the largest detention center in the country, as some of you have reported already. to cage 3,000 people. And the reason that activists are so concerned is that monitoring developments with Title 42 policy, just last night, Axios published that maybe Biden is considering delaying the repeal of Title 42. What is certain is that the administration and immigration authorities are already looking and planning ahead to what will happen once people are admitted into the country from the southern border, and they're looking for places to warehouse human beings. And this is one of those properties that private prison profiteers are actively marketing. So we are here to say we're not waiting for the administration to give us answers. We're demanding assurances that this facility will not be expanded. And this is part of a larger campaign that has multiple demands. I just want to highlight for you. We're calling for full rights for all immigrants. We're calling for an end to racist mass incarceration. We're calling for a stop to US imperialist exploitation, because we know that this under-resourcing of other countries is the root cause of many of migration and refugee crises in the first place. So with that, I want to just ask Paul if maybe you have capacity to try sharing your screen so we can hear some of Leanne's words. Having trouble hearing the presentation as well. So I'll just take my privilege as moderator to move us along, and we will try to return to that impactful video. But I want to go ahead and...
No somos nosotros como personas inmigrantes indocumentados. No somos lástima, ni somos caridad. No. Queremos solidaridad a nuestra gente inmigrante, a nuestra gente indígena, a nuestra gente latina. Lo único que venimos a hacer es, huyendo de nuestros países, en busca de refugio, de seguridad, de protección. Y en este país no los ha brindado. Aquí tienen el ejemplo de justicia. Aquí tienen el ejemplo de un país de derechos humanos. ¿A dónde están los derechos humanos? Los derechos humanos están encarcelados. ¡Jamás será vencido! ¡El pueblo unido! ¡Jamás será vencido! ¡El pueblo unido! ¡Jamás será vencido!
Thank you so much for that, Paul. And with that, let me turn it over to one of the several activists who were directly impacted and survived the system. First up is Nilson Barahona with Icebreakers. Nilson, I'll give you the floor.
First of all, I just want to say thank you to everybody, for giving us this time. The truth that we are speaking of today is very shocking. As somebody who has experienced being in detention, I can tell you that what we were able to see outside Folkston Detention Center was a call of somebody who want to be rescued. It's very difficult, as somebody who went through it, to be able to separate your personal experience with when other people are going through it as well. And all I can say today is that what they told us is what matters right now at this point. They basically give us a call of rescue us, like we're going through this. We have people who are right now in hunger strike and they are being retaliated against because of that. They were afraid of getting retaliated after they were able to talk to us outside. Um, what is happening in this detention center is no different from what is happening through many detention centers along the United States. But this is Georgia we're talking about. This is our home we're talking about. This is the message that we want to bring to the people. We are here to be part of the community, to help, not to harm. So we don't want to be harmed as well. Human rights are being violated at this place, and it's just not different from many others that have been shut down. They have the contracts have been finished, you know, with ICE or immigration. But the thing is that we can't allow this to happen here. We have been heard enough as a community, and to allow it to happen here in Georgia again will be like a slap in the face. We have been through so much already. Do not deserve to be treated this way. There is nothing that you can use in a court of law that can allow you to do these kind of things to human beings. This has to stop, and it has to stop now. It's enough. It's enough. We don't need any more of this pain to be inflicted to the community. And we are doing this to ourselves by allowing these kind of things to happen. At the end of the day, it's our tax money that goes to pay for those contracts. And we can say where we want our money to be spent on. And this is not the way it should be. People should not be getting rich off other people's suffering. And this has been a message for such a long time, and it's gonna stop until it all stop. We want to let everybody know that we are gonna be fighting, and we are gonna be standing on the line, because we are not gonna go down easy. We are not gonna allow our brothers to keep suffering this way. There is so much more that I can say, but I'm sure we're gonna be talking about it some more later. So I'm just gonna let my cameras to keep going with the program.
Thank you so much, Nelson. A quick housekeeping note: if you're an upcoming speaker, but you're not currently speaking, can you try to remove video just for now, and hopefully help us with some of our bandwidth issues. But with that, I want to say our next speaker is another survivor of this ICE detention regime, and I want to welcome him now. His name is Eskinder, and Eskinder, if you'd like us to place your name in the chat with, so that reporters are able to spell it, just give me a thumbs up. I will be happy to do that.
Yes, you can give them. Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. Yes, so I was detained in 2017. I spent a little over maybe 3 years, and much of it was in Irving facility. I had a brain tumor and that they knew about, but they didn't want to pay for the surgery, and so for 2 years, the ICE knew about it, and they didn't release me so that I can go take care of it. And so my body constantly would just continue to deteriorate. And it wasn't until a federal judge who forced DHS to release individuals who have pre-existing conditions, which put them in a position of possibly dying from COVID. And so, yeah, that's this whole situation with Title 42. If you look it up, if you Google YouTube it or whatever, you will see a high volume of like Fox News reportings. Okay, and you guys know what Fox News is about. They're using scare tactics. Okay, if you look at the numbers, it doesn't make any sense. There's no emergency. There's not going to be like an extremely high volume of people coming through the border. Right now, I think that it's around 18,846 people as of April 11th. That's how many detained individuals are in the United States, around rounding up to like 19,000, and 70% of those people are they don't have any criminal history, and 70% of that 30% it's mostly just misdemeanors, and so it just this whole thing is just to these corporations, like Laura said, we go out to Central America, we destabilize their economy, we cause them to come here. So it's not that we're helping these migrants who are seeking asylum. It's our responsibility, it's our duty as human beings who are causing instability in their country, forcing them to come here. Okay, we're not helping them. We're correcting a mistake that we're making. This is what is occurring here. Okay, we need to assume responsibility. And Title 14 was not about controlling the volume of people who are coming through the border. Title 42 was about COVID-19. So this whole thing of swaying the conversation about the number of people is just it's usually rural America who don't understand how government is manipulated by the same corporations that not only create instability here, they create instabilities over there. So the first thing we have to do is assume responsibility, because this is done. If you're a United States citizen, it's done under your name. Your name is being used to create instabilities in these other countries. And so the first thing to do is to assume responsibility, help these asylum seekers, and then work within the system to change this whole legal bribing through lobbying. Okay, that's how you eliminate corporations controlling governmental policies, dealing with how people should treat each other. It's just, I mean, there's like 184 detention centers in I believe, I looked it up, in Texas. And there's a lot of detention centers all over. And DHS purposefully sends the people who are coming to states where they have the least likely chance of getting approved for asylum. Okay, so if you're coming through the border, and they're not going to send you to California. Okay, they're not trying to send you to that circuit 9, to the Ninth Circuit. They're going to try to send you to Texas is also the Ninth Circuit. However, immigration court and the BIA, they're very they're biased. They have there's another agency that's responsible for the immigration court that forces, they basically give immigration judges a quota that they have to fulfill. Okay, so if these so-called immigration judges are supposed to just, enforce legislative policy, how can they do that if they have to fulfill a quota? If there's something on the side telling them, well, this is how many people you have to deport. In Atlanta, only 2% out of 2% are granted asylum. Okay, so that's like 20 people. A judge will hear 1,000 cases and is forced to only give asylum to 20 people. How is that judge enforcing legislative policy on a case-by-case basis if he or she has to follow a quota? There's an inconsistency in this. And you also have retired judges who are seeking to take the immigration court back from the executive branch into the judicial branch. I don't want to keep going, but the most important thing is it's just propaganda. This emergency. There's going to be, once Title 42 is pulled back, there's going to be a large amount of people coming. This is not true, and there's so many places for asylum seekers to come to once they get here as well. There's enough resources to deal with the very small number that are coming. And with that, I thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you so much, Eskinder, for your deep analysis there. And I'm going to turn it over now to representatives of just some of the many organizations that are part of this campaign to shut down the Folkston ICE Processing Center. And the first of those, if I could welcome Daniela Rodriguez, Executive Director of Migrant Equity Southeast.
Thank you, Laura. Hey, everyone. This is Daniela Rodriguez, Executive Director of Migrant Equity Southeast. My pronouns are she, hers, ella. Today, we are happy that we're here in this space, but at the same time, we're sad that we had to come to this space and to begin with. And that is because we, as organizers from Migrant Equity Southeast in South Georgia, we know firsthand some of the struggles that immigrants face. Just recently, there was a human trafficking case happening close to Vidalia, Georgia. And every day, we deal with clients, immigrants who are victims of many abuses. Anytime we hear, we talked with other organizations about working in South Georgia, people are always like, oh, good luck with that. How is that? Because over here in South Georgia, not only do we don't have a lot of resources for immigrants, but also it's just like a very tough climate for immigrants. It's already tough as we speak. And so now that we have this expansion of Folkston, it just makes it even worse. We feel like when immigrants contribute so much to society, and now this expansion is happening, it just brings more fear to the community. The community feels that they're not welcome, that they're a threat to Georgia, that they're being seen as a threat to Georgia. And as we advocate for acceptance, for inclusion, for immigrant rights, it's really hard to make it seem like South Georgia is a space that welcomes immigrants with dignity and respect when an expansion of an immigration center is happening. One, and not just any expansion, it's an expansion that could become the biggest immigration center in the nation. And so this is not the Georgia that I know it can be. I know that Georgia can be a better place, a more inclusive, more accepting place. Definitely, I know that we can do better. I know that allies can be better advocates. This is why we are here today, because we need to raise more awareness. We want people to do something, to make calls, to meet with people in power, to send postcards, to send text messages, to vote, to do anything that they can in their power. So those people who are behind the prison system of Folkston can be free. We don't want just to end the expansion. We want this center to be closed. We want to shut down this place. When people in power were running for office, they promised us that they would do better. But now that they're in power, it seems that they're forgetting about us. This is not what we advocated for. We demand more. We know that we're not asking for too much. We're only asking for human rights. We want our community to be free. People come to the US thinking that this is the land of the free. This is not the land of the free. We demand better. And we know that Georgia can do better. We're tired of being treated like we are less. I, as an undocumented immigrant, know I have said before that the only reason why I'm not inside a detention center is because I have been lucky. And that's not how it should be. With Migrant Equity Southeast, as organizers from South Georgia, we demand better, because we know that South Georgia can be better. And so we have an ask to everyone, every ally, to raise their voices and to say something. Remember, if you stay in the neutral side, you're choosing the side of the oppressor. And remember that not everyone is free until all of us are free. Thank you.
Daniela, thank you so much for that. I would now like to create space for Selena Herrera, South Georgia community organizer with the Georgia Latino Alliance for Human Rights. And Selena, take it away.
Hello, everybody. Good evening. Selena Herrera here. I'm the South Georgia community organizer with GLAD, the Georgia Latino Alliance for Human Rights. And so the Georgia Latino Alliance for Human Rights, among other allies and organizations, are here to uplift the voices of immigrant communities in detention, specifically those in Folkston Detention Center. We commend that the efforts of many community members and allies who protested this past weekend in Folkston Detention Center. Our battle cries were heard from March 3rd, the National Day of Action, when many allied groups in this coalition also showed up to protest the expansion of Folkston and demanded its permanent closure. For over 20 years, GLAD has dedicated outreach to rural and often forgotten immigrant communities. GLAD has organized and built 19 comités populares, their local hubs of activated community members, with the initiative of our executive director, Adelina Nichols, who has always sought to create spaces where impacted community members led the fight. Our efforts have not only been to end 287G and collaboration between ICE and local law enforcement agencies, but also to push forward and the fight to end immigrant detention centers, as well as the broader goal to decriminalize the immigrant community. Focusing our attention on Folkston is of great importance in a moment where national attention is suggesting that alternatives to detention are a better option to incarceration. We are saying free them all and end all kinds of incarceration. This is a moment where, despite administrative efforts to allegedly find solutions for our community outside detention, we continue to see billions being into reinforcing existing immigrant detention centers and the expansion of others. At this moment, we are seeing an increase of immigrants in detention and in spite of e-incarceration, and we must end them both. Once again, for over 20 years, we have fought for immigrant justice, and we will continue to fight to shut down Folkston and all immigrant detention centers here in Georgia. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Selena. All right, I have a brief note that for press here with us today, you are welcome to drop questions here in the chat now and during the speeches of our next couple of speakers, and we will get to them during the Q&A section. And if you have any other questions, you can also email shutdownfipc@gmail.com after this call. So also, I just wanted to briefly emphasize too that with the campaign to shut down FIPC, we are specifically pressuring President Biden, who had promised to end profiteering off of incarceration, and the Democratic Party and the Georgia representatives Warnock and Ossoff, who, you know, throughout their campaigns are making promises toward immigrant communities to fight for immigrant rights. But so far, we haven't seen that. We saw that the provision to add immigration reform to the social spending bill was actually not pushed through due to conservative elements such as Joe Manchin within the Democratic Party. And we haven't really seen these important figures who made promises to immigrants on the campaign trail really push and fight for the rights of undocumented immigrants in this country. Because with the Senate, the Congress, and the presidency, the Democrats do have the power to grant full rights to all 11 million undocumented immigrants right now. And we want to really hold folks accountable to that and point out that this is a possibility and we need to be fighting for full rights for all immigrants. And so on that note, we will continue with our next speakers from different organizations. Our next speaker is Jan Rivers from Team Libertad. You want to go ahead, Jan?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. I just want to emphasize the importance of allyship in the community to come forward to speak. As another speaker mentioned earlier, to contact our elected officials and to let them know that this is not okay for us, that we do not agree with this, and that we will not tolerate incarceration as a consequence of seeking asylum. And so we are contributing by incarcerating individuals seeking asylum. We're contributing to trauma and danger in their lives that they are fleeing their countries from. So as an ally, I may not be directly impacted as somebody from another country, but I have the double responsibility as being a citizen here to stand up and speak for those who are coming to this country, seeking asylum, seeking a better life. That's the same thing that we all want. We want security, we want opportunity, and we want safety. And that's what everyone wants. So as non-immigrant allies, we have an obligation to stand up and speak for against incarceration here. And we can see what happened in Irwin County with forced gynecological procedures. And when they shut down that facility, that was a win for the community. And it would just be not only reversing that, but making it even worse if we have to expand the facility, if we have to expand Folkston and have even more people incarcerated. And I think the elected officials, Senator Ossoff, Senator Warnock, Secretary Mayorkas, and President Biden need to understand just how much the people in the Southeast are alert to this issue and how important it is to us. So we put these Georgia senators in Washington. We did a lot for the country by doing that. And now we're asking them to step up for the immigrant community by ensuring that there are not profit-making companies profiting off of suffering of individuals incarcerated for immigration. So thank you all for attending. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Jan. Next, we have Priyanka Bhatt, a senior attorney at Project South. So please go ahead, Priyanka.
Thank you. As mentioned, my name is Priyanka Bhatt. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a senior staff attorney with Project South. We're a social justice organization based in Atlanta. We aim to protect and defend communities of color and immigrants, including Black, Brown, Muslim, Middle Eastern, and South Asian communities. For years, we've documented the horrible human rights violations happening inside ICE detention centers here in Georgia. From the Atlanta jail, where we are forced to remember the life of Mr. Atul Kumar Babubhai Patel, an Indian immigrant who died in ICE custody at the jail, to Stewart County Detention Center, known for forced labor practices, where immigrants are made to work for as little as $1 a day, and where we mourn the loss of 9 men, 2 who died by suicide after being held in solitary confinement, and 4 who died from COVID-19. To Irwin County Detention Center, where we first raised awareness of the horrifying gynecological abuses happening to immigrant women without their consent. And today we stand here in solidarity with those suffering abuses inside Folkston ICE Processing Center. Similar to the other ICE prisons, community members in Folkston have reported being pepper sprayed, beaten, and thrown into solitary confinement when advocating for safe precautions around COVID-19. Immigrants with chronic illnesses like diabetes are reported not receiving their medication. One individual told us that as a result of not getting his medication on time, he had to be hospitalized not 1 time, but 2 times. 1 time because his medication was so late, his health immediately deteriorated and he fell and became unconscious, only to wake up at the hospital. He told us that when he's not feeling well and calls for help, his requests are ignored. Others similarly noted that when they report serious ailments like chest pain, the officers ignore them. Meanwhile, private prison company Geo Group continues to make money off of the suffering of human beings at the prison. In addition, just last year, Charleston County expanded the contract with Geo Group to quadruple the number of people who can be held inside the prison from 780 to about 3,000. And some of the new bed space would come from part of D. Ray James that was ordered to not be used anymore by the Biden administration over safety concerns of all privately operated prisons through an executive order. It is appalling that Geo Group will now repurpose that closed down part of D. Ray James to expand Folkston ICE Processing Center. And that is because of the loophole that allows the federal government to continue to use privately owned immigrant detention centers despite the executive order. So we are demanding that Charleston County do the right thing and end the contract with Geo and ICE completely. And we're urging the Biden administration to close the loophole and eliminate all use of privately operated ICE prisons. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Priyanka. Our next speaker will be Leanne Sanchez, the Executive Director of Community Estrella. You want to go ahead, Leanne? Go ahead. You're on mute. Oh, muted again. Sorry.
Ok, again. Hola a todas, a todos. Soy Leanne Sánchez, coordinadora principal de Community Estrella, una organización que aboga, organiza y empodera a la comunidad trans y género no conforme en el estado de Georgia.
Hello, everyone. My name is Leanne Sanchez. I'm the Executive Director of Community Estrella, an organization that supports and advocates for the rights of the LGBTQ+, specifically the trans community in Georgia.
Esto me recuerda una pesadilla. Como persona impactada directamente, viví en un centro de detención de migración por un año en confinamiento solitario.
This is a reminder to me, and it feels like a nightmare. I am a directly impacted person, and I was in an immigrant prison, and I suffered through a year of solitary confinement.
Ahora he escuchado las mismas historias de nuestra comunidad, no solamente de nuestra comunidad trans o de nuestra comunidad LGBT, sino también de otras personas que se identifican como cisgéneros. Y es muy triste escuchar esas historias porque me recuerda el pasado tormentoso que viví.
We have recently heard more stories of people that are in these immigrant prisons, and not only of LGBT Q plus people, but also of cis heterosexual people. And it reminds me of the atrocities of through when I was incarcerated.
El sábado pasado, en colaboración con otras organizaciones bajo la coalición de eliminar los centros de detención en Georgia, hicimos un llamado, hicimos un rally enfrente de este centro de detención de inmigración Folkston.
Last Saturday, the campaign and committee to shut down Folkston Ice Processing Center did a call to action and a rally in front of Folkston Ice Processing Center.
La energía que se vivió fue muy motivante, a su vez de tristeza, a su vez de desesperación, con diversos sentimientos encontrados.
The energy there was truly motivational, but at the same time sad and frustrating when we heard directly from people that were incarcerated there.
Escuchando historias de atención emergente.
Hearing stories that need immediate attention.
Sin embargo, nos hemos unido para seguir organizándonos y solidarizarnos para cerrar este centro de detención de inmigración.
However, we will unite and keep organizing in solidarity to close prison or this detention center.
Y evitar que se extiendan 2,000 camas en esta cárcel, formando así uno de las cárceles más grandes a nivel nacional que detiene a personas inmigrantes o que encarcela a personas inmigrantes.
And we will avoid the expansion or stop the expansion of 2,000 beds, which would make this the largest prison in the United States that incarcerates immigrants.
Es por eso que hacemos un llamado para que se solidaricen, que estas personas que tienen el mando de crear estas leyes que nos protegen, que nos cuidan, pongan atención a estas peticiones.
We call for solidarity from people that make the laws, make laws that are there to protect us and the community. We call on them
Y sin
to
embargo,
stand with us.
Lo que hemos recibido es criminalización constantemente por nuestras intersecciones, por ser inmigrante, por ser indígena, por ser trans, por ser indocumentada y por ser monolingüe. ¿A dónde están los derechos humanos que Estados Unidos supuestamente promueve?
But in our cause, we've only faced and encountered more criminalization due to our intersectionality, criminalization for being indigenous, criminalization for being trans, criminalization for being monolingual. Where are these rights that are guaranteed by the United States?
Senadores Rafael Warnock y John Ossoff, hemos escuchado infinidades de veces promesas tras promesas y no se han dignado en tener una reunión para escuchar nuestras historias, para escuchar nuestro trabajo, para escuchar nuestra resiliencia.
Senator Warnock, Senator Ossoff, we've listened to your promises, but to date, you have not been able to meet with us personally to hear stories, or you have not wanted to meet with us to hear stories of our suffering, stories of our work, and stories about our resilience to keep moving forward.
Y por lo tanto, queremos también que se solidaricen, que usen sus plataformas para cerrar este centro de detención, estas cárceles, esta cárcel. No queremos ninguna prisión más en Georgia. Queremos comunidades, no jaulas. Gracias.
So we ask that you join us in solidarity and use your platform and your power to close these prisons. We don't want more prisons in Georgia. We want you to invest in communities, not cages. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Leanne. Our next speaker is also Reverend Leanne Colbreth from South Georgia Immigrant Support Network. So if you want to go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Nat. And thank you to all of the organizers who made this happen today and are shedding light on the abuses at Folkston. Again, I'm Reverend Leanne Colbreth. I live in South Georgia. I'm a priest in the Episcopal Church, also a member of Georgia Detention Watch Steering Committee, and have been involved in issues of immigrant detention in South Georgia, specifically at Irwin County Detention Center for the last 5 years or so. In about 5 years or so, as I was getting into this kind of work, I had an opportunity to be on a stakeholder tour of Folkston. The facility had just opened, and there was a small group of us that had been organized by a national advocacy group to tour the facility. And there were about 300 or 400 men detained there at the time. And the men were given an opportunity to meet with us. So we split into 3 groups and went into the dining hall where there were about 80 men who wanted to speak with people from the outside. And we were the first people from the outside that they had seen since they had been there. And I sat down at a table and about 40 men surrounded me, just pressing in closer and closer and yelling. All of them wanted for their concerns to be heard and for me to know and document the abuses they were experiencing. Many of them were from India and Nepal and Africa in the group that I was in. And there was one translator for the group, and he translated what these men were shouting around me. And they were things like, I'm looking at my notes from that tour now, things like they treat us like dogs, that They have 15 minutes to eat a meal, and if they're not finished, the rest of their meal gets thrown away. They're giving one cup of water at a meal, and they can't get refills. In their dorms, they don't have cups for water. They have to buy them the commissary. But to do that, they have to have a work in the facility for $1 to $2 a day in a voluntary work program. They didn't have access to the law library. They didn't have much access to recreation. They would take 4 to 5 days to get medical needs addressed, and then they weren't addressed appropriately. One person said lights could not be adjusted or turned off. They were going on early in the morning. One man had an injury, a serious injury, but was not able to get medical care. And then he eventually needed surgery, but had to suffer that pain because it wasn't believed that he was actually injured. And had, I'm looking to see what else. Well, all of the things that they listed then are the same things that we hear now that are happening in Folkston and other detention centers. We are aware that these abuses have been going on for a long time, and how many thousands more people have suffered from them at Folkston alone in that time, in 5 years. The administrators that led the tour were very proud of the facility, of all of the upgrades they had made from the old prison, that there was AstroTurf in the new recreation yard to reduce injuries, that there were checkerboards painted on the tables in the dorms, that they used soft hues of blues and greens and the paint colors. And they were extremely proud of their linoleum floors, the designs on the floors that they had replaced 3 times until they had gotten it just right to soften the look. Well, it was clear then, and it's clear to us now, that no aesthetic softness changes the harsh realities of these immigrant prisons. This is also a good time to be shedding light on these abuses. These are holy days for many people of faith. I am a Christian, and this is a time where we have been remembering Jesus's solidarity with those who were criminalized and tortured and killed because they threatened state power. We also celebrate Jesus's resurrection, which we believe unleashed the power of transformation and redemption in the world, including the possibility of restoration of harm, transformation of prisons, of communities that are dependent on death and on forces of evil and darkness that are destroying those communities as well as people's lives. And it shows Easter as a time that we're reminded that another way is possible. And many in my tradition recommit to the work of justice and peace and respecting the dignity of every human being. So today I echo all of the calls for involvement, for advocacy, for everybody, but I call especially on people of faith, particularly those who are in churches or faith communities near detention centers, to become aware of what is happening, to know that these abuses are happening in your community. And it harms not only those who are in the detention centers, but also the workers and ultimately the community as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So before we move to our next statement, I did just want to again uplift the fact that beginning this weekend, emboldened by the protest organized by the campaign to shut down FIPC, many people in the unit B4, the unit that's incarcerated that was outside in the prison yard during the protest on Saturday, are confirmed to have gone on hunger strike with around 40 people. And at least 3 of those people have been put in isolation. So the majority of the unit has gone on hunger strike in solidarity with those who are being especially punished. We will continue to follow the situation, uplift demands of those inside, and continue the demand that DHS call off the expansion and shut down FIPC. And we also want to, again, pressure Senator Warnock, who has spoken out in opposition to the Biden administration's decision to end Title 42, because the Warnock's office has also not offered any specifics as to what part of DHS's plan around Title 42 that they find inadequate. And we want to remind people that almost 2 million people were apprehended trying to cross the southern border last year, and the vast majority of those people were turned away and deported under Title 42. It's one of the largest expulsions of migrants and refugees in decades along the United States border, and thousands of Haitians specifically have been targeted for deportation. Biden has deported over 20,000 Haitians since taking office. And Title 42 allows the expulsion of families, adults, and children without due process or access to asylum. It was allegedly issued to combat COVID-19. It was the Trump administration's workaround to implement a policy of mass expulsion at the border using the pandemic as a pretext. But we know that public health experts have clarified that immigrants are no more likely to spread COVID-19 than the rest of the general population. The fact that this Title 42 has existed so long into Biden's term is unacceptable. And what is also unacceptable is the fact that the Biden administration violently cracked down on Haitian refugees in September, which called comparison to slave catchers as Border Patrol agents attacked refugees with whips on horseback. So we see this as all part of the same system that we need to speak out against the continued billions of dollars in funding that Biden's 2023 budget has now proposed to go to Customs Border Patrol and ICE, and to actually advocate for the rights of working class and immigrant people. We have a common interest to fight the system that profits from the incarceration of poor Black and brown working class people. And I want to also say, again, we don't need to pass legislation for DHS to publicly commit to not expanding FIPC. So I hope more people will continue to join us in this fight to shut down FIPC and to stop this system of incarceration and profiteering off of incarceration in Georgia and push this fight across the country. And so I'll hand it off to my co-facilitator, Laura.
Thank you so much, Nat. And I just want to close out this, speaking portion of the program before we invite any questions that you might have by sharing some testimony from a person currently inside of FIPC. His name is Jose. And while I share some of his words, I regret that he cannot be virtually present in his own image and words, given the restrictions on communications that happen with people held against their will there. I will also share my screen to let you look at some of the images created by participants at last Saturday's event at Folkston. If you have other questions, if you want a copy of the statement, if you want these photos, reach out to us at shutdownfipc@gmail.com, and we will be able to share some of that information. So Jose has spent most of his life inside the US. He graduated from college here. He started a business here. He has US citizen children here with his wife. And what he shared about what he knows of the prison, jail, and detention system over the past several years is how it's designed to break people's spirits and will. And one aspect he discussed was his inability to manage his diabetes inside custody because of the lack of access to a healthy diet. And in fact, what he talked about was food that, if not outright rotten or spoiled, was mostly rations of low-cost starches like white bread, potatoes, canned fruit, and sugary syrups, food that can harm the health of diabetics and is not good for any of us in excess. And this is a quote from what Jose said, quote, "The system here doesn't let you take good care of yourself. The menu is rice, beans, and potatoes. You have to eat that or nothing else, basically. I had to eat that or go hungry. Then I was tested and my sugar was 266. the lady said, I have to take insulin. And I said, I don't take insulin. She said, if you don't want insulin, you have to sign this form, close quote. So it's not only diabetics, it's every human who is in FIPC against their will, who have no other food to eat but that which the system makes available. And it's not just unhealthy, sometimes it's downright rotten. And yes, GEO Group and its agents have served spoiled food several times. So earlier this year, Jose and nearly 50 others inside came together to sign a statement expressing their concerns about the rotten food to the people who run FIPC. In that statement, they said that over several days, their meals included, quote, uncooked beans twice, rotten lettuce twice, rotten eggs once, and finally, rotten rice, close quote. The group proposed to get some sandwiches instead to have some food that evening. They did not see food from lunchtime until that night around 8 p.m. In that powerful statement that we also can make available, the group said, quote, we declare that GEO FIPC failed to feed us and acknowledged that they cannot provide or replace the rotten/contaminated food plate that they were serving us. Thus, they failed to do their responsibility under contract, close quote. So these problems are built into the system and they happen in FIPC and in every other jail. So he was in another jail and spoke about the profit motive driving the low-cost food that they were served. And finally, Jose shared another part of this system besides the hunger that prisoners endure, and it's how immigrants suffer double punishment the times they come into ICE custody after being criminalized by the criminal justice system. So, like many others who come into ICE custody, Jose served some time in criminal custody and he paid his debt to society. But after all that, instead of being released, ICE jailed him at FIPC for the civil infraction of having an immigration case. And his last quote is, more than half my life, I've been here. Yes, I did some wrong, according to what I've done before, but I've paid for it. My family is here. My life is here. With a signature, they could release you to fight your case out in the community. Be productive. Try to regain your family and your kids. Now you have to go and fight again for the same thing you already paid. It's not fair. It's double jeopardy. Close quote. And like I said, we can make that statement available in writing. We can share those images by email. And I haven't seen very many questions come in from reporters through the chat. I just want to ask once again, if you do have any questions, I'm going to pause now to see if you can pop them into the chat. And if not, we have some canned ones that we can answer.
This is Johannes from Telemundo. I wrote the question there, but it was to have one of the speakers, it can be you, Laura, or any of the speakers, to speak in Spanish, to have the message that you're sending today in Spanish. It will be great for us to have it. And also, I don't know if Mr. Nielsen Barona is still with us here, but if we can have a part of his testimony in Spanish, it will be great for us.
Thank you so much. Nielsen was having some connection issues, Johannes, and I'm going to follow up with him separately. If you have capacity to connect after this press conference with Nielsen.
That will be better. It will be better.
Okay, I have taken down your contact information and we can follow up directly after.
Excellent. And thank you for your invitation. Thank you for having us here.
Thank you. So just hearing the silence, I think maybe we can go with one of the canned questions about what we know about DHS's statements or lack of statements regarding their plans for the expansion of this facility. Is there anyone who wants to take that question?
I can speak a little bit on that. 1 second, sorry. So,
Elliot, could you just share your name and organization first?
of course, yes. My name is Elliot Lepe, and I am an organizer with Somos South Georgia, and also a litigation advocate with the Southern Poverty Law Center. I, as well as others in this coalition, heard of these rumors of the expansion back in December. The AJC and Univision covered the expansion and were able to see the amended contract between the county and Geo Group. Since then, advocates have been asking directly from the federal government, people that are in different agencies within DHS for confirmation. The response to date has been still that ICE currently has no plans to, I guess you could say, give their blessing on the actual contract that is being formed between Geo Group and between Geo Group and Charlton County. And so, although they haven't officially confirmed it, we did learn of this from a very reliable source during an OIG inspection. They shared specifically that there were internal discussions off the record about the expansion that was going to be coming down soon. And also they shared that, they encountered many deficiencies at FIPC, Folkston Ice Processing Center, throughout their inspection, and that this report would be extensive and released in the spring. So I think that kind of sort of addresses that question. But again, if anybody needs any more clarification, we look to the government to clarify and give more information regarding a possible expansion. When we couple that information with everything else that we see happening on the border, the closures of Etowah and the ending of the ICE contract and Glades in Florida, it is something that, we safely speculate that there will be a need to house many of these incarcerated immigrants, which incarcerate many of these immigrants somewhere. And it seems that Geo Group and Charlton County are prepared to push for that expansion there.
We do have 3 minutes left, so one last call for the reporters that have joined for any follow-up questions you might have. Hearing none, I think then that we should leave it at that. And if any of you are interested in a separate interview with any of today's speakers, we will pop an email finally into the chat. We'll route your request to the appropriate person. Be on the lookout for a follow-up press release from this coalition, from this campaign, with the demands and with updates to this very concerning hunger strike. and just want to reiterate that I'm really grateful to everybody who made time to join today and worked hard to pull this off.
I want to add too, if anyone is watching online or is interested in getting involved with the campaign, you can follow us at Shutdown FIPC on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or send emails at that same handle, Shutdown FIPC, because we want to build this mass movement for immigrant rights. We're going to fight for immigrant rights, and the protests are starting out. We know that even with just a few people that we can make a difference, that we're able to connect and build solidarity with folks on the inside. And we know that soon there will be thousands of people in this movement who are willing to fight for immigrant rights and to guarantee that we can do that we can win, that we can shut down Folkston ICE detention center, and we will gain full rights for all immigrants. So please join us in this struggle to continue the fight.